going slightly mad. I'm going slightly mad.
You want to do it? Yeah? Okay. Please like and subscribe. Okay. Okay, Aloysius. Now, yes, I did read your book. What did I think of the main character? You're not going to like this, Aloysius. No, you're not going to like this. What am I not going to like? Okay. I didn't like your main character. Calm down. Calm down. I didn't like your main character. But they're the most perfect person in the world. See, that's the problem. They're the most perfect person in the world. That's not very interesting to read. Well, why would I want to read someone flawed? Well, because when we read books, we like to be able to put ourselves into the books. And none of us are perfect. And perfect people are a bit off-putting. Like who? Like Superman. Superman is really, really boring. Yeah, I know, all he does is do good. Why do you think so many other superheroes are so much more popular than Superman? I mean, Batman is all dark and mysterious. And the mutants in X-Men are all angsty and like having thing about being mutants. Superman is just good. That's it. He's good. He's boring. Well, yes, there was the movie where he was split into two Supermans and one of the Supermans got drunk and flicked peanuts at liquor bottles. Yes, that was interesting. I like that one. I would have watched more of that Superman. But the Superman that he usually is, he's boring. And and because he's so good, and because it's set up on a good-bad dichotomy, you always know he's going to win. Yeah, it's boring knowing they're always going to win. Well, because there's no tension, there's no possibility that they might not win. Their flaws might screw them up entirely and mess up the whole situation. Well, how old are you? 5? I mean, only 5-year-olds want something that's that simple. And even then, not all 5-year-olds. Well, what do we want? Well, the other problem with a perfect character, your perfect character, for instance, your perfect character, Aloysius, is passive. Because they're perfect, because they have no flaws, all the conflict in the novel has to come to them. It's not something that they have done themselves. They haven't screwed up and have to fix it. Other people do things to them and it's like, oh, woe is me, why did this ever happen to me? And frankly, that looks a bit whiny. You know, I mean, somebody who knows that they screwed up and takes responsibility for it and straightens themselves out, now that is interesting, because that is something you can go, yes, I can root for that person. I can really go for them because they acknowledge that they stuffed up majorly. Like, you know, like Mr. Darcy. Mr. Darcy is a flawed character. Mr. Darcy is 10,000 a year, and that's about all. But Mr. Darcy is a small flawed character. Remember Mr. Darcy's first proposal to Elizabeth, where he tells her that I have struggled against my reason, but I cannot help it. I love you, even though all my friends, my family tell me that this is a stupid idea, and that I'm going to have relations who are absolutely embarrassing. I still, will you marry me? And it's like the most awful proposal in the history of proposals ever. But you know that Jane and Bingley, theirs is a boring story. They meet, they fall in love, Darcy messes Bingley about and makes sure that Bingley doesn't propose to Jane by remonstrating with him. And then when they get back together, Bingley and Jane pick up as if they never left, and Bingley proposes to Jane, and then they live happily ever after. You see? Yeah, that's boring. I mean, the only reason conflict happens with Bingley and Jane is because somebody else comes in and messes it up for them. They themselves have a most boring, unbelievably boring plot line. But Darcy and Elizabeth seems to believe that Darcy has mistreated Wickham badly and Wickham's a cad. He didn't, but she doesn't know that. And so she is under that misapprehension that he is just a selfish and greedy person. And he is just like such a snob that he just cannot possibly see that, insulting her friends and family and herself even is not the way to go about proposing marriage. So like serious flaws. And then the second half of the novel is all about Elizabeth discovering that Wickham is the cad that he is by the fact that he runs off with her sister. I'm not telling anyone things that they don't know here. Everybody knows Pride and Prejudice. That's why we're using this. When her sister runs off with him, or he runs off with her sister, and then is forced to marry her, and then Darcy is forced to prove himself by making good what he didn't know, what he didn't let known about Wickham, who's a predatory person. And so he fixes up the complete stuff up that he makes. And through both of them becoming better, they are able to come together and marry. And so it is so much more satisfying, because if they'd been just Jane and Bingley at the beginning, that is such a boring story. All she did was catch a cold. Like, that's the biggest complication in hers. She caught a cold and his friend, moved him to London. I mean, it was a boring story. Elizabeth and Darcy are complicated, flawed characters, which is why Pride and Prejudice is the keystone of romantic literature in the English language. So my characters need complicated flaws that they must overcome in order to be interesting for an audience, rather than perfect people that bad things happen to. Yes! Yes, 1,000 times yes, Aloysius. Okay, so you need to go and rough the edges up of your characters. Give them some traits that are not very nice, or that get in their way. It's not that you don't want them to be relatable and good, though again, Darcy is 10,000 a year. There is nothing about what he looks like, anything, just 10,000 a year. That's the important bit. Bingley, nothing about him, 5,000 a year. Very wealthy men, but that's their value. But they have flaws. He has character flaws. So you want them to be likable. You want them to be appealing if they're your main character, so people want to do things. But they also want to go along with the fact that someone gets in their own way and stuffs things up and maybe is awkward or shy and doesn't do the thing when they should do the thing, or they have other complications in their lives. Make their lives messy. Messy lives make good books. Okay? You want to be able to work out the mess and resolve it, but you do not want to make them perfect so that they never have any problems. Okay? So mess up your book, mess up your characters, give them human flaws. Otherwise, they're going to be as boring as Superman. De volka finger, ich bin ja, ich huspedaiser, sa. Bye bye.